the light of the world. I am the salt of the earth, a city that cannot be hidden. I radiate light and illuminate light for the lost flocks. Amanda muttered with quivering lips. Yes, that is exactly who you are, affirmed Mr. Potter. You are an heir of a kingdom that cannot pass away. Greatness and power to do exploit is your heritage, he added, looking straight into her eyes with a warm smile and light tap on the shoulder to urge her on. I command abundance and productivity listens. Managed to add some few more words. You are a kingdom influencer with the mandate to reconcile men back to God. A God's laborer called to do the work of Him who sent you. But how best can you propagate His agenda when you haven't built enough influence? The last line hit her so deep that she was sunk into a trance. This was a wake-up call that there is work to be done. Beyond professing to be a Christian is the mandate for a leadership with influence. His voice called her back to reality with his beautiful crafted speech, like a salesman pitching a multi-million-dollar deal to a room filled with billionaires. Fortunately, it goes beyond declarations and affirmations. He stopped briefly to check if she was still following what he was saying. When he had confirmed that she was listening, he continued. To gain influence comes from the place of mastery and competence. People follow authority. They respect efficiency. Like you've rightly affirmed, you command abundance and productivity listens. You can't be a mediocre to command results that yields productivity. Productivity listens to authority and honors competence. His speech, tailored together, was coming straight from his heart. Amanda saw all of the passion on his face. The words were heavy and filled with inspiration. What would I do without this man in my life? She thought. His words spoke volumes in few lines. The words pricked her heart, touched her conscience, and reshaped her thoughts. But he didn't stop there. As Christians, this is a call that our lives go beyond just loving Christ. It spans to carrying the gospel to the ends of the earth. And this can only be achieved when you become an authority in your particular area of gifting, which only mastery can guarantee. We have the advantage of being fruitful, but this can only happen when we've found purpose. Influencing people becomes easy when you are a voice the majority wants to listen to. This way, the gospel becomes easier to propagate. You become the one-two individual anytime. People will sit to listen to you, even if it is Christ you are preaching. Mr. Potter said this with a big grin on his face. She remembers those words and the occasion as if it happened just yesterday, as her thoughts were beginning to drown. Mr. Potter's voice, she was recalling the stories she had heard about him and the ones he had told her earlier. His story has been one of a Christian businessman whose relevance in the business world cannot be overlooked. He was a force to be reckoned with, so much so that his voice was all that was needed to seal a deal, any deal. He was so skilled that residents of Fortune 500 companies and leaders of countries consulted him on issues bordering around economic strategies and financial policies. But together with his expertise, he always carried the gospel with him. It became his identity, and he wore it proudly like a badge. He'd start every meeting with a word of prayer, regardless of who his clients were, Christians or Muslims, Buddhists or Hinduists. Then he will quote from the Bible as often as the need arises. In the 23 years of his career as a businessman and consultant, he has led over 200 persons to Christ. Most of them were CEOs and top management staff of the companies he consulted for. He narrated how some will call him late at night to talk about the sinful life they were living and how much their families were suffering for their illicit behaviors. That always provided an opportunity for Mr. Potter to present Christ to them and lead them to him. His favorite evangelism tool was the Bible and the 4 Spiritual Laws booklet written by Bill Bright, the foremost American evangelist who founded Campus Crusade for Christ as a ministry for university students. But Mr. Potter has found the material relevant even for non-students and executives in the corporate world. Amanda always counts herself fortunate to have met Mr. Potter a few years ago on campus. He was a staff of the university before he left to build a career in the business world. When she first became a Christian in her first year on campus, she started walking in the faith through the mentorship of this portly and soft-spoken man. He was in his mid-40s at that time. She got so entangled with this man that has grown to be the father she never had. He has been nothing but supportive, always ensuring she never lost her tracks. His influence in her life over the years became extremely loud that anyone could see it play out in her daily life. The procession of pall bearers making their way through the pew to the front of the church brought her back to the present. She was sitting at the front row, 2 persons away from Terry Potter, the wife of the now deceased Mr. Potter. The front row was reserved for members of his immediate family only, but Mrs. Potter insisted that Amanda must sit with them. She has grown to become part of the family. Mr. Potter passed away after a brief stint with prostate cancer. The church was filled to capacity with mourners and sympathizers from different parts of the country. It seemed the whole of America was mourning. Others flew in from other parts of the world to pay their last respects to the man who represented Christ and never compromised even in the dog-eat-dog world of corporate America. A week before he finally succumbed to the prostate cancer that was ravaging his body, Amanda visited him at the hospital to see how he was doing. She was appointed as the director of operations in Mr. Porter's firm 5 years ago, and since then has helped in the establishment of branches in the Middle East and Brussels. Even though most of what he said came in whispers, she kept to heart his last words to her. God has given you a spirit of excellence. You must keep being excellent in what you do. That's the only way the light of Christ will shine through you.